Shalom from Israel. My name is Ishai Harel, and we're learning Shulchan Aruch, actually Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, together. And we ended last week with Law 32, that all men's intentions should be for the sake of heaven. Everything you do and you act should be done in accordance to serving Hashem. If the things you do or want to do are not good for the sake of heaven, are not giving honor to Hashem, it can be that the things that you want to do are not good to do. So you should consider it well, that everything you do must be for the sake of heaven. So, for example, we said, how can we serve God? How can we serve Hashem? By eating and drinking? Well, even if you do not drink or do not eat something because it is forbidden, that's already acting for the sake of heaven. And if you're eating and drinking the things that Hashem gave permission to eat or drink, of course, then also you are doing it for the sake of heaven. So let everything in your life be inspired by the laws of Hashem, by the Torah. Today we're continuing with Law 33, Siman 33, things forbidden because they are hazardous. Devarim v'hasurim mishum sakana. It is considered forbidden to eat meat and fish together. Certainly in earlier decades, the rabbis teach that eating fish and meat together could harm your health. Still, we're keeping a kind of precaution in it. So when we eat fish and meat in the same meal, we will not eat it at once together. So we will first eat fish with a separate plate and separate fork and knife. And when we are continuing, for example, the Shabbat meal to a new course, then we will take away the plate and the fork and the knife and eat from a new plate, fork, and knife if we start eating meat. So we try to keep it separately. If you are eating at the same table with somebody and he or she is eating fish while you are eating meat, then you should take care that you have a certain kind of distance between you and him or her, so that you are actually eating it apart. Cannot influence the food, cannot influence each other. If there is food or drink that you really don't like to eat or drink, you don't like the taste, and you're getting a bad feeling of it eating, don't eat it. Because when you would eat it, you actually would feel discomfort in eating and drinking it, and thereby you are not doing it anymore for the sake of heaven. Because if you eat and drink, you must honor Hashem with it. It is forbidden to cut down, it is hazardous, it's forbidden to cut down a fruit tree while it bears fruit, because when you hurt the tree while he is giving fruit, it can damage the tree so much that he will stop giving more fruit. The fruit that is still in the tree will stop growing. Of course, when the tree is damaging other trees, then you should do something about it. Or when a branch broke, maybe because of the weight of the apples, of course you can take away the branch that broke. But we should be careful not to hurt a tree which is giving fruit. Another example, you should not cross a water stream that is already very dangerous. If you see the water moves fast and the water is twirling around, etc., don't enter the water. You can know on forehand already that it would be a dangerous action to go in there. And we are not allowed to bring ourselves on purpose in dangerous situations. Law 34, Siman 34, Hilchot Tzedakah, the laws of charity. Charity is very important in the life of a Jew. We are obligated to give charity, and the Torah is very clear about it and has given us a system in how we should divide and provide charity to the poor, to the homeless, to the widow, and to the orphan. And because we are Am Israel, we are one people. So if parts of Am Israel are being hurt by the cause of poverty, not having food, or in other difficult situations, it hurts all Am Israel. So in case that we should take care, like you take care of your body. If your hand is hurt, you do something about it. You don't say, okay, it's just my hand. I still have another hand and another feet. I can still walk and do other things. No, you take care that you heal the hand that is hurt. So that's the same in Am Israel. We should take care of each other. In situations where somebody is poor and he asks for tzedakah, you must give him tzedakah. If you have not tzedakah in your pocket, at least give some words, give some encouragement to the one that is asking for charity. Because if you ignore the one that is asking for charity, you are actually making Hashem ignore you. You don't want that situation, that you don't want to cause for yourself a difficult situation. So if you meet somebody else which is in a difficult situation, give at least a small amount. It is said in Yeshayahu 54:14, and the throne of Israel will be established, and the religion of truth confirmed only through charity, as it is said, through charity will you be re-established. So charity is not only a good thing to do, but it is even a key that opens up blessings for your life. If you perform the mitzvah of charity, Hashem will bless you. You should not give charity in order to be blessed by Hashem. You have to keep your heart pure. If you give out of love for the one that needs it. It is also said in Devarim 13, whoever is merciful with others will be treated with mercy himself by heaven. So Hashem watches us, and he measures us by the same measure we measure others. It would be even good if your acts of charity precede you, go in front of you. It is not a bad thing if you are known for giving charity. If you give charity in order to be known, to have a good name, then your motivation is not okay. And we learned that we should do everything for the sake of heaven and not for the sake of ourselves. So, but if your heart is pure, your intentions are pure, and you want to give charity a lot of times, you can do it, you must do it. share the things that Hashem gave you. Everything you receive in your life, everything, was not from you from the beginning, but it was in the hands of Hashem, and He blessed you with it. So how wonderful is it to bless somebody else with the things Hashem blessed you with? But maybe you say yourself in a difficult situation. You are poor. Well, Hashem is not asking you to give all of your income away. But if you are poor or in a difficult situation yourself, at least give 5 shekel, maybe 5 shekel. You can spare 5 shekel and give it to somebody that needs it more than you. How much should we give? It's a good question. I know there's people that say you should give 10% or 20%. Well, the Torah gives a whole system and calculation about how much we should give, and actually it is first spoken about if you're working the land, and if you have how do you call it? If your land gives and you harvest, how much should you give from your harvest? 10% of your harvest? No. Well, let's skip the 10%, but let's just talk about from what do we have to give? Well, outside of the offerings we should bring to the Beit HaMikdash, we have to give from what we have gained. So you can take off the costs of what you had to spend in order to make the profit, to gain the harvest. And if you're not working in the land but have a salary from another job, take off all your costs, and what from your costs you should give a part to the poor. If you know that the city is already taken care of, you can be part of that by giving also to the city. And when the city gives help to the poor, the city should at least give bread and food sufficient for 2 meals and a place to sleep. So when the city provides help for the poor, let's say at the end of the day, he gives them a dinner, a place to sleep, and in the morning a breakfast, and then the poor can go on his way again. If you are just by yourself, maybe you have some clothes you can give. If you have food, you can spare some food. If you have money, give him a little money, even if it is not a non-Jew. Of course, if you are living in Israel, we first give to the Jew, but we should also give to the non-Jew, because Hashem doesn't make a difference in to whom we give charity. We should give charity equally to all. But there is a preference. If you know that your father or your mother has not enough, you can take the money you would have been given to charity to another person, and you give it to your parents. You help your parents with it. Or if your children are grown up and they could have made their own money, but you want to give them the opportunity to study Torah more, so you invest in your children, you can take from the charity money and spend it on your children so that they will be able to learn more about Torah and come closer to Hashem. How much charity should you give? Well, the first year it says here you should give a tenth of the principal. So what you start, the thing you started with. And again, Torah mainly talks about giving tenths and tithes, and maaser rishon, and maaser sheni, etc., to the Levite, to the Kohen. All these things are always talking about when you have land and you grow, for example, grain on the land, and you give from what you have profit from the grain. Or if you have animals, you give from what you have profit from the animals. So when you don't have animals and you don't have land to grow, harvest on, then you have to look at your own income, and from what is left, you give something to charity. So if you give charity at least a tenth of the principal, and thereafter you should give a tenth of the profits you can earn each year. It's also a mitzvah to help somebody which has planned a circumcision for his child. If you know he can use it, you give some charity for his circumcision. If you know that a father and a mother, or maybe a widow, is marrying off her daughter, but you are poor, so she is a poor bride. She cannot bring a certain amount of money into the marriage. You should help them. Why should we help them? Because that is what we do as Am Israel. We help each other. And it is not a good situation to marry and to start poor into your marriage. So we should help each other and give charity to the ones that are marrying, would be marrying poor, but with our help not. Another example of giving charity is when, for example, there is a family, a father and a mother with 12 children, and the father who is bringing in the money dies. Then we should help the widow and her children with income to proceed their lives. We can think not only about what they need for today, but also about what do they need, what do their children need for study, what do they need for housing and for food. How can we help the family so that the goals that the father has set for his family but now cannot fulfill because he has died, how can we help that family to fulfill the goals in the merit of their father? If you feel in yourself about charity, also, if you feel in yourself that you have some evil inclination in yourself, you feel your Yetzer Hara wants to press you or draw your attention to things that are not from Hashem, you can fight that feeling and you can fight that inclination by giving charity. It will have a positive effect on your against your Yetzer Hara. If you give charity but your emotion is not right at the moment, you are angry, for example, for some kind of situation, but you decide to give charity but you're still angry, I want to get back for a moment in to whom we should give charity, because I said we give charity to everyone alike. There's no preference, but I also said there was a preference. So I have to explain this. Yes, we should not consider one person. If we are on the street, for example, one person higher than another person, you can give, or if have preference because you like somebody more or less. It doesn't count in giving charity. But if we're talking about who is closer to you and who is less closer to you, then there is a preference into whom you give charity. For example, if you support your father and your mother, and the only way to support them is to by using your charity money, then they come first. Then that's the way you give charity to your father and your mother, and your older children, as we talked already about it. So your children, your father, your mother, then come your relatives. If they are in need, you give to them first. You help them out. Then maybe there's a poor person living in your house. You help him first. The poor person in your street, you help him after it. The poor person in your city, then you help him or her. And only after that you help the people that are living outside of your city. So the way Torah teaches us to help each other is from Devarim 15 verse 11, where it says, to your brother, to your poor, to your needy in your land. So the Torah, Hashem gives us directions that we give first charity to the ones that are close to us, and only afterwards, if it's possible, to the ones that are at more distance from you. Physical distance, but also like emotional distance. Okay, so then we go back where we were. Yes, if we give charity, we should do it as discreetly as possible. Why? Because the one that is in need also has honor, a feeling of honor. And if, for example, you know that somebody needs money and you are in a gathering with friends and you give openly to him or her some money or food, the other can feel embarrassed, and he or she will not accept the tzedakah that you want to give him. So in order to maintain the honor of somebody else, if you know that somebody needs more than just a few coins of charity, maybe you can give a loan. And you make it an easy loan with no interest. Well, we are not allowed to ask interest from our fellow brothers and sisters, from our fellow Am Israel. So we don't ask interest, but for the example, if you give a loan without interest, if you maybe he or she has a business and you don't give him the money, but you become partners, he and you know that it's actually you giving money. But you do it in the form of being partners, so nobody knows and will know, and you will not feel it as have received charity, because it's a commercial action. And in order, you give him like 50% of your company, and he pays you for the 50% of your company. So now you are out of your problems, and the company gets a healthy investment and will continue to exist. But now you're partners. Now you're both benefiting from the continuation of the company you're the director of, which is your property. So now it's 50-50. And it's a wonderful deal. It's a wonderful deal. It's a wonderful way of giving charity. If you want to give charity, don't just give the coin in the presence of others to somebody, but try to, maybe you have an envelope and you pass them an envelope, or you put the envelope somewhere where nobody else sees it. that you are leaving the envelope. Of course, when you're on the street and people ask you for money, you can give it openly because they're asking openly for the money. But also think there, you cannot give to everybody in the city. Well, you can, but if you give to everybody in the city and your own household will then be hungry, not having food to eat, so then you're benefiting others above your own family. And your first responsibility is with your own family. First you, your wife, your children, and if you are poor yourself, you just give a little. So it has to be in balance. You just give a little to somebody else because it's good performing the mitzvah of charity, because then you will receive blessings from Hashem. But you take first care of your own family, then you take care of other one's situation and family. What you can do also is, if you can motivate others to give charity. If you are able to motivate others, it is also on account of a blessing for you. The best thing you can do is helping a Torah scholar. If you know that somebody is serving the community by his Torah learning and teaching, we should help them. Well, so it works like this. The one that teaches Torah cannot ask money for teaching Torah. So you're not giving directly money for him teaching Torah. Why? Because Torah is free. The knowledge of Torah is free. The secrets and the depths, in-depths of the Torah, in the levels of Torah, and the oral Torah, and all the other books, the Mishnah and the Talmud, which you see behind me, all that wisdom is for free. It doesn't cost any money. But if somebody invests time in learning and teaching others, it means that he cannot spend that time working, for example, in a factory or in some other place. So we compensate Torah scholars by giving charity or by giving even a small income. We compensate him for not being able to earn his money in another field of work. I hope you understand what I'm saying. So, for example, if you are learning at a yeshiva, the yeshiva asks you for a small amount of money to be part in the costs that they are making. You're not paying for the Torah classes, but the rabbis that are teaching are not able to do another work. But if possible, if a Torah scholar has to work to provide for his own family, then he should seek a job that is simple. For example, Rav Akiva sometimes needed to work, and what work did he have? He worked as a wood chopper. It was easy work. He could do it one day or 4 days or 10 days. He didn't have to study for it. He had the tools for it, and he did it when it was needed, and when it was not needed, he just put the tools aside again. So if you have a work that doesn't ask a lot of your attention and a lot of your thinking, then you can keep concentrated on Torah. But again, we should give charity to Torah scholars in order that they will be able to provide for their families and maintain their families in an honorable way, so that they can teach us and can learn with us and can help us understand Torah. Then the last one. Sometimes we meet people on the street or somewhere else asking for charity, and you feel not comfortable with it. That can be that those people are having no need of charity. If there is no need for charity, but they take charity anyway, uh, we learn that those people will not die actually until they really need charity. So it is dangerous to accept and to ask charity if you don't need it. But you, the giver, are not responsible for the inner motivation of the one that asks. So if you don't know, and if there's no whatsoever, that you think that is not okay, you can give. Even if you feel that it's not okay, you can give in order not to create an embarrassing moment on the street by other people's looking at you, that somebody asks you for money and you're not giving it, or maybe even 10 cents and you don't give it. People will ask themselves why this man of God will not give to the one that needs. So it's also about the testimony you give of your own life and of you performing mitzvot. But if you really know that the one that asking for charity is performing a scam, is not at all needed, and he is going to use it for other things, of course, don't give it. But that's not the final word. Our attitude must be to give charity in whatever situation. And maybe somebody is more helped by a piece of bread, a bottle of water, a blanket, some clothes. If you would give 10 cents, he cannot buy a blanket with it. But if you have a spare blanket, why don't you give it away to somebody that needs it, so that he or she will sleep warm that night? So the responsibility of asking is with the one that's asking, and the responsibility for giving charity, for giving tzedakah, is with the one that is giving it. And we all have to give responsibility of our lives to Hashem. Chapter 35 is about separating challah. The promedio rule is that you separate some piece of the challah from the amount of about 1 kilo 600 grams, 1600 kilograms of flour. You make a dough out of it and you separate a piece. Originally, the separating of is for giving it to the Kohen, so that they will have also something to eat, and they also, the Kohanim also can take from the offerings that were brought in the Beit HaMikdash, but we don't have a Beit HaMikdash anymore. And nowadays, because there's no Beit HaMikdash, and we all gave in accordance to the things that were happening in the Beit HaMikdash, we don't give anymore directly to the Levites or the Kohanim. And there's even an opinion that says we don't know for 100% anymore if the ones that are saying that are Levites are actually 100% Levites, because there's happened so much assimilation in the last 2,000 years that maybe accidentally there was a mix-up. And that is not the fault of anybody, but we should be careful with it. So our rabbis have taught us that not to give our tithes, and not to give our maaser, not to give our separation of the challah to the Kohanim or the Levites, but you take a little, you burn it in open fire a little, and then you put it away. You pack it in some aluminium foil or a plastic bag, and you put it in an honorable way in the where you have the things you are going to throw away. You put that with it, but in an honorable way. You don't throw it in the garbage can, but you just put it politely in it. And of course, you have to say the beracha that accompanies the separating of the challah. So from if you're making bread and you're making dough, if the amount is 1 kilo and about 600 grams or more of flour, of dry flour, you are obligated to give a piece of the challah. Also from matzot, if we bake matzot, we have to separate some of the dough of the challah. And we are not, with matzot, it's different because on Pesach, we have to make sure that there's no chametz in our dough, so we make small portions of dough in order that it will not be get chametz within the following 18 minutes. But after it, we make a little dough, we make matzah, we make a little dough, we make again matzah, we make another little dough, we make matzah. But at the end, we are storing the matzah in a box or in a container, and we consider the all the matzah together as being from one big dough, and thus we take some part of the dough apart for separating challah. If you forget, point 9, if you forget to separate challah on Shabbat, on Yom Shishi, Erev Shabbat, in countries outside the land of Israel, you may eat it on Shabbat, but you must set aside one piece of bread and separate challah from it after Shabbat is over. And the piece should be large enough for the separation of challah with some remaining dough unsanctified. So actually the text here is talking about when you forget to separate challah in countries outside the land of Israel, but it doesn't state here what to do if you forget to separate a piece of the chalot inside the land of Israel. So maybe I have to look it up after this shiur, and I will get back to it next time. But for now, if you forget, just put to separate the challah, just put a piece of the bread on Shabbat aside, and after Shabbat, you make it as if it is the separation of the challah. Okay, Siman 36, Hilchot Milicha. Laws, Melicha, it means the laws of salting meat. Well, in Israel, if you buy meat in a kosher supermarket or a kosher butcher, you can almost be sure that he already kashered the meat. And when it has an hesher from the Rabbanut, it is kosher and it's okay. And if it's cut already and it's frozen, you know it has already been salted. But there may be situations that it's not yet kosher. There may be situations that you perform the shechita yourself and you have to kasher the meat. So after you have bled out the animal after slaughtering it with the shechita, and the shechita is with as much knife as possible in one movement to cut here and to bleed out the animal as much as possible, and then you prepare all the animal how you should prepare it. And if you have the pieces of meat, you first have to wash the meat in water thoroughly, at least half an hour, and the water must cover the meat. The water must not be too cold, because if too cold, the meat will get stiff and the blood will not be able to pour out of it properly. So it has to be a little on temperature, the water, not cooking and not 37 degrees, but not cold. And lukewarm, we say. And you wash the meat, not only the putting it in and pulling it out, but you give it a rub. You make sure that you give a massage to the meat, that all the blood is going out in the water. And after that, when you soaked it, you have to put it into salt. You have to put, so the salt must not be the finest salt, but the best is salt of some bigger grains. If we use, there are different types of names for salt that is not fine grinded, but so you have to the bit bigger salt you need with the bigger pieces, and you rub the salt and you cover the meat in the salt, and you should give it a rest for half an hour. And of course, you do not put it in a bowl, because if you put it in the bowl and the salt does its work, the blood will come out, but it will immediately go in the meat again somehow. So you put it on somewhere where you can drain the liquid, the blood from the meat out of the meat. After half an hour, you can take the salt off the meat, and you have to wash the meat or rinse the meat 3 times. Rinsing is pouring water over it, but you give it a rub again 3 times with fresh water, and then you can use the meat for your meal and prepare it. We're just now talking about regular meat. If, for example, you are eating the heart, you must cut the heart first open before soaking it and doing the procedure of kashuring the meat. If you eat the lungs, you also have to cut them open first, so that all the blood can drain out of the texture of the lungs. If we eat liver, because liver is an organ that contains a lot of blood, it's not enough just to soak it and to rub it in with salt and to soak it again, to wash it again. So liver, we have to prepare directly and kosher directly in open fire. So you take a piece of liver, of course you wash it, but then you hold it directly in a flame. And if you hold it in the flame, the blood will come out. It's like I think if you notice sometimes, if you're frying some meat, sometimes there comes some white liquid out of it, and immediately it gets a hard substance. That are the proteins in the meat that are getting hard, like you have egg white. But the blood before getting thick or cooked or baked, it first stays liquid. So if you put the liver into the fire, it will drain out the blood from the inside to the outside, and that will be the right way of kashrering liver. And then the last thing, the Torah teaches us that we cannot mix milk and meat together. So what will happen if we do the shechita on a baby cow which has just drank milk from its mother? Well, you will find the milk in his stomach. So what will you do when you slaughter it? Can you still use the meat? Yes. What we do is, when we find out that there is milk in the stomach of the calf, then you have first to drain the milk out of the stomach. And when the milk is out of the stomach, you continue the slaughtering of the animal, of the meat, and you can just do it as normal, wash it, salt it, another time wash it 3 times, and it will be okay. It's not considered as having cooked the milk and meat together, because you immediately remove the milk from the body without, of course, spreading the milk out on the meat. You just get it out of the stomach, and that's okay. The next time we're continuing with Tefilat Kelim, so that is bringing our utensils, our pots and pans and knives to the mikveh, and about kashering also in certain situations our utensils. It's all different kind of chapter. We are not going into it right now, but it's very interesting. So we're going to talk about metal, glass, wood, and how to treat it. But that is for next time. Litrot, bye-bye. And my wish is that Hashem will protect you all, and that you will stay healthy and will not get sick, for example, for corona or other things, but that He will bless you all with His health.